The first time she caught me staring, she froze mid-step, her hands tightening on the lawnmower handle like she was bracing for something terrible. The sunlight fell across her face, and for a moment our eyes locked. Hers were filled with something sharp, anger, fear, maybe both. Mine were filled with something I hadn't felt in years, hope. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just turned away like I was a stain she couldn't scrub off. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Midnight Tales. Stories like this remind us how fragile and how powerful the human heart really is. Her name was Alina Cade. She had moved into the small house next door exactly 32 days ago, at least according to the calendar pinned to my kitchen wall. I hadn't planned to count, but loneliness has a way of turning time into something measurable. She arrived on a bright morning in a faded blue pickup truck, her hair tied back in a loose knot, her expression guarded like someone who had learned the hard way not to trust easily. She didn't have much: a mattress, a few boxes, a folding chair, and a silence that seemed to follow her everywhere she went. My name is Rowan Hale, and I hadn't spoken to anyone in person in over 2 years. It wasn't that I hated people. It was that people reminded me of what I had lost. My wife Mara used to fill our house with laughter, the kind that echoed off walls and settled into the corners like warm sunlight. After she passed, the laughter disappeared, and the walls became too quiet, too heavy. I stayed inside most days, watching the world through the front window like it was a movie I no longer belonged in. When Alina arrived, she disrupted that quiet. She moved differently than anyone I'd ever seen, like every step carried invisible weight. She worked in her yard every morning under the unforgiving daylight, pulling weeds, trimming hedges, forcing life into the soil like she was trying to convince herself she could still grow something. I watched her without meaning to. She was the first sign of life on that street in a long time. But to her, I must have looked like a creep. One afternoon, she marched across the grass toward my porch, her jaw tight, her shoulders squared. Her voice cut through the air like broken glass. She said I needed to stop staring. She said it was disturbing. She said she felt unsafe. Her words hit me harder than she could ever know. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. I did stare. Every day, every morning, every chance I got. She didn't wait for an explanation. She turned and walked away, leaving me standing there with the weight of shame pressing against my chest. That night, I didn't sit by the window. I sat at the kitchen table instead, staring at Mara's old mug, the one with the tiny crack along the rim. I wondered what she would say if she could see me now. She always believed people were worth reaching out to, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. The next morning, I stayed inside, and the morning after that, and the one after that. But loneliness is louder than pride. A week later, I saw her again. She was struggling with the lawnmower, tugging at the cord over and over as the engine refused to start. Her frustration was obvious, her movements sharp and impatient. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight she carried had grown heavier. Before I could stop myself, I stepped outside. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might betray me. I kept my distance, my hands visible, my voice gentle. I offered to help. She hesitated. Suspicion flickered across her face, but exhaustion won. She nodded once, reluctantly. The mower started on the second pull. She didn't thank me, not with words, but her shoulders relaxed just slightly, and that was enough. After that, something shifted. Not all at once, but slowly, like ice melting under cautious sunlight. She stopped glaring when she saw me. She stopped avoiding my gaze. Sometimes she even nodded. Then one morning, everything changed. I noticed she wasn't in her yard. Her curtains were drawn. Her car hadn't moved. Something felt wrong. I didn't know why, but the silence felt heavier than usual. Hours passed. Finally, I saw her emerge. She looked different, pale, fragile. Her steps were slow, careful, like each one hurt. She sat on her porch and buried her face in her hands. I shouldn't have watched, but I did, because I recognized that posture. It was the posture of someone who had lost everything. Later that afternoon, I did something I hadn't done since Mara died. I baked. My hands shook as I measured the flour, as I stirred the batter, as memories flooded back with painful clarity. Mara used to bake when she was sad. She said creating something sweet made the bitterness easier to bear. I left the small box on Alina's porch without knocking. The next morning, the box was gone. And for the first time since she had arrived, she waved. It was small, hesitant, but it was real. Days turned into weeks, and that single wave became something more. She began to linger outside when I was there. Sometimes she would sit on her porch with a cup of coffee, her eyes softer now, less guarded. The invisible walls between us were crumbling, brick by careful brick. One afternoon, she finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, fragile. She told me she had lost her younger brother 3 months before moving here. He had been her only family. A drunk driver had taken him in an instant. She said the world stopped making sense after that. She said she moved here to escape the memories, but grief had followed her anyway. I didn't tell her about Mara. I didn't need to. Grief recognizes itself. From that day on, we didn't need many words. We shared silence instead. And sometimes, silence is the purest form of understanding. She stopped calling me annoying. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gold, she said something that broke me in the best possible way. She said she was glad I had been staring. She said it made her feel less invisible. She said it reminded her that someone still saw her. She was right. I had been staring, but not because I wanted to invade her privacy, because I wanted proof that life was still happening. And somehow, without realizing it, we had saved each other. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to Midnight Tales for more emotional journeys that remind us we're never truly alone. Your support keeps these stories alive. And before you go, please comment "I see you" to remind someone out there that they matter, even when they feel invisible. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for another human being is simply see them.